Eat less, move more, or counting calories as a concept for weight loss has been around for quite a few decades now. And I want to start with this statement that while it is 100% accurate and true, it also fails most people that attempt to use it in order to manage their weight. We see this really strongly in the research. Up to 80% of people who lose any significant amount of weight on some sort of dietary protocol will gain most of it back within about 5 years. And so, this is really strong evidence, really strong scientific support for the fact that you need to be eating less than you're burning in order to lose weight. And yet we still have a rising obesity epidemic and more people who are just simply frustrated at their inability to maintain a body weight that they're happy and feel good in, or perhaps, the amount of effort they have to put in to achieve that. And I've seen, with any kind of strong concept or theme that occurs in human race, there's always a pendulum effect that kind of springs back from that. And I've seen that as well in more recent years. We see this kind of clean eating concept that has come up, and it has its own pitfalls when it comes to weight loss. While I think as a concept it's really, really brilliant, you could be eating as clean as your grandmother's dining room table, but if you are still eating more than you're burning, ultimately over time you are going to gain weight. So what's really going on here? Let's spend a few minutes and just kind of untangle this, because I really want you to be able to walk away from today with an understanding of why it's accurate and why it fails for most people. And fundamentally it boils down to the fact that humans are a little bit more complex than a simple mathematical calculation. So let's just all accept that the concept that you need to eat less than you're burning in order to lose weight. If we accept that as true, we can then go layers deeper and start to look at, if that's true, how do we actually apply that? Because this is where the flaws happen. This is where we slip up. We need to kind of factor in the human aspect here, not just behaviors and habits and patterns and mindset and all of that, but what's going on internally in the human body as well, that's going to impact whether you are actually eating less than you're burning. So the first thing that I see that often happens is, if we're accepting that this is true, we think, well, I want to lose weight. In fact, I wanted to lose it yesterday. I might have been putting it on for the last 20 years, but I want to lose it now. And so we think, well, if that works, then doing it harder and faster is going to work quicker. And so we kind of set ourselves up for failure. We set ourselves up in this extreme deficit that we can't maintain. And initially we'll get some weight loss, which is really motivating. The trouble is that eventually things will happen. We'll have social engagements. We'll have times when we're, say, in spaces where there's more temptation or smells or food connections that we find harder to resist. And because we've been in extreme deficit and we've been restricting, we always get this ping back effect. And it just happens time and time again that we set ourselves up for failure because we try and go too much, too soon, too hard, too fast. And while a caloric deficit works for weight loss, if you go too much, it actually has the opposite effect. And I've seen this so many times where people are actually undereating and it results in overeating. And it's a little bit like a seesaw where we go from undereating, maybe Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then overeating Friday, Saturday, Sunday, which if you put that together and average it out means that on a whole across the week we've actually spent time in excess rather than a deficit. And a caloric deficit results in weight loss when it occurs over a period of time, not just on one day. And so setting yourself up for something you can only maintain Monday to Thursday means that in the long term you're not really going to get the results for the effort that you're putting in. And not only that, you'll feel a little bit cheated because you'll work really hard on Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then either get none of the results or the opposite result in the long term. So that's the first part, is that it works, but we have to use it sparingly, because when you go too hard too fast, you actually get the opposite outcome, and there's nothing more frustrating than that. But the other part to it is that when we start to lose body fat in a caloric deficit, our body has a fight back effect. It's our survival, mechanisms kicking in. And it does this in two key ways, because body fat is safety for us. It's safety if there's no more food coming in. And when we start to lose it, our body's like, mate, we need to look after our stores. They're disappearing at an alarming rate and there's no more food coming in. So how can we protect that? And it does it, like I said, two ways. And the first one is it slows every everything down. Your movement will slow down, your step count will reduce, your fidgeting will stop, which might be a good thing for me, right? Our thyroid function turns down, sex hormones turn down, everything turns down, body temperature reduces. The body does whatever it can to reduce caloric burn, because caloric burn is energy release, and you don't want to be releasing energy if you haven't got energy coming in. So the body's really intelligent. The body's looking after us here. It's saying, look, we're losing fuel. We need to slow down consumption. And so it does whatever it can to safely turn that down while keeping you alive and functioning. So there's that factor, that everything's slowing down, which means we're going to feel a little bit worse. We're going to feel tighter. We're going to feel more sluggish. We're going to feel a bit colder. We're going to be less likely to want to go for walks and keep our energy output up, which means it's going to be harder and harder for us to actually stay in a deficit in the long term, because we're moving less, we're burning less, right? The other part to it is that there's actually a fight back from an appetite perspective. And, evidence sort of suggests that for around about every kilo of fat lost, you potentially have an increase in your appetite urges or hunger drive by about 100 calories. So if you take this out over 15 kilo or 10 kilo or whatever, it's a significant increase in your appetite and in your hunger drive, which again means that while you may be maintaining your deficit, it's going to be harder and harder to maintain that in the long term. So you have to put in more and more effort to maintain the same deficit over a period of time as you drop body fat. And that means, again, more likely to get that ping back effect of I simply can't maintain it, or the temptation is too great and we kind of slipped up and we ended up eating what we didn't intend to eat. And then that might be just enough to put us either into maintenance where we stop losing, or into a slight surplus where we start to gain weight again. So again, we can see the whole theory is correct, but when we really get into the layers of application, there's a little bit more that we need to be understanding there, and a little bit more that we need to be accounting for. And this is why with the Body Reset program, we look at all of these different pieces of the puzzle, because it's more than just saying, well, if you want to lose weight, you need to eat less and you need to get out and go for a run, because there's always going to be a ping back on that. It's going to work for a while and then it's going to stop working. And this is what humans see time and time again, is they'll go and do these 6-week challenges or these fad diets or whatever, and they work for a time, but then there's always a point where it stops working and it tends to go back the other way. So if we can factor in all these nuances, and a couple of ways we do this with our Body Reset clients that I think you might find quite interesting, and perhaps even not concepts that you've necessarily kind of thought of before. And the first one is really understanding this concept of feed first, build the engine, would be another way that we say this. So if you've been under eating for a long time and everything's slowed down, going into more of a deficit is only going to back you further into a corner and make it harder and harder. Instead, what we can do is actually bring in some more consistent fuel, bring in things and get everything firing again, get the thyroid hormones going nicely, increase your body temperature, increase your desire to move and walk and get some stuff done again, and then bring some training into that and build some muscle. Our muscles, our metabolic currency, it's a huge part of what determines how much we burn on a day-to-day basis. And if we have more muscle, we burn more fuel, which means we can eat more and feel better in the process while reducing body fat percentage. So the first part is feed first, build the engine, get the whole machine running well, and then we can look at how we intentionally kind of maybe structure deficits if we need to, because sometimes that's all it takes. There's many ways to create a deficit, and it's not always by eating less. Sometimes it's actually getting things moving a little bit more first, and not necessarily going for a run, but getting your blood moving, getting your muscles moving, getting your hormones moving and whatnot. Another tool that we really use is leveraging macros. So there's a couple of parts to this. One is protein. Protein has a really high thermic effect. It costs your body more to digest it, meaning you're less likely to store it as body fat. Kind of gets things running a little bit hotter, and you can actually eat, when you're eating protein, you're keeping your blood sugars balanced. You find it has a much better effect on satiety for one. So you're not kind of looking for other foods. You're less likely to give in to cravings and whatnot, but it just helps you build the muscles and build the hormones and build all those things that you need in order to maintain a healthy body weight. And then really looking at that kind of balance of macros and carbohydrates. There's the quick burning and then there's the slow burning fuels. And if you're kind of relying on that real sugar burn cycle, you're going to find it much harder to maintain any type of caloric deficit in the long term, because you'll simply be hungrier more often. And so really leveraging the power of meal structuring, meal spacing through the day so that you can maintain enough of a deficit to achieve the body composition goals that you want. But then when you've got them, you know how to maintain them because you're actually eating food you enjoy and you're feeling good on it, rather than just feeling like you're restricting all the time and it's something that you can only do for a couple of weeks at a time and then we give it up. And the last part is really working in seasons. Sometimes there's all these variables that determine how much calorically our body is burning. There's our hormones, there's our stress, there's sleep, there's all these different things. And sometimes when our body's got a lot going on, or if we're recovering from an illness or an injury or a surgery, something like that, it is not the best time to be shooting for fat loss. And so we could put ourselves into a caloric deficit, but we may be sacrificing so much. We may get some fat loss, but we may be increasing the length of time that it takes for us to recover from an injury, or increasing, some of the stress response and hormonal responses that we get as a result. And so really looking at, is this the time when we should be focusing on fat loss as the goal, or should we focus on looking after the body and getting that really healthy first, and then we can go into some intentional fat loss and you get better results in a shorter amount of time and you feel better in the process. So really looking at what's working for you when, and is this a season to focus on that, or do we want to look at kind of doing this primer phase first? Let's prime the body for a successful fat loss phase, rather than just kind of focusing arbitrarily on fat loss and reducing calories. So if you want to know a little bit more about how we do this, or if you are actually just really a little bit sick of kind of going through these cycles of dropping and then gaining, dropping and then gaining, I want to give you the opportunity to have a look at our 28-day gut reset. This gives you a little bit of a taster of some of the things we go through with our clients in the program, but it gives you some tools to add to what you're already doing to be ultimately and hopefully more successful in your endeavors, because there's nothing worse than putting in all the effort and getting none of the results for it. We've recently updated some of the videos in this and it's really fresh, and it's going to give you a really nice idea of some of the layers that we build through with our clients and why we get such good outcomes. We're constantly or routinely getting clients that are dropping 10 to 15 kilo, but they're feeling great in the process. Some of them are even eating more than they were eating before. They're moving more, they're training more, their hormones are better, their sleep's better, their energy is better. And it's because we're understanding that under that umbrella of eat less, move more, there's all these other factors which need to be taken into account that make it easier to stick to that in the long term and actually get the outcomes that you're looking for. So if you're watching on Facebook, comment reset below and we can send that out to you. If you're watching this on YouTube, it'll be linked below for you. And hopefully that was helpful. Hopefully you've walked away with a little bit of an understanding of how something can be true and also fail miserably when we don't take into account the human factor. Have a great day, guys, and I'll see you next time. Bye.